What does it take to open a neighborhood bar and kitchen in the bourbon capital of the world? Today, we're sitting down with Chef Newman Miller, the mind behind Mr. Tubbs in Bardstown, Kentucky. From building systems that save money on day one to designing menus that balance ambition with profit, Newman is here to show us how the details you don't see make all the difference. If you're dreaming of opening your own place, you won't want to miss this conversation. Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator. My name is Brandon Sharp. As an executive chef, I earned 7 Michelin stars, and now as a chef owner, I have 3 restaurants here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So when you walk into Mr. Tubbs in Bardstown, Kentucky, you're greeted by more than just cocktails and small plates. You're stepping into a vision crafted by Chef Newman Miller, a Kentucky native who has blended big city experience with small town roots. From his work at Maker's Mark and Star Hill Provisions to his role in shaping Bardstown's rising culinary identity, Newman has lived the realities of building a restaurant in a market that demands both authenticity and operational discipline. In today's episode of the Restaurant Incubator, Newman pulls back the curtain on how he turned Mr. Tubbs into a profitable, community-driven operation. We'll talk about the systems he put in place to control food costs, the partnerships that helped him scale smart, and the lessons he's learned about labor, culture, and risk that can save future owners from costly mistakes. If your dream is to open your own restaurant without wasting time or money, Newman's story is packed with insights you can apply right away. Last quick thing, y'all, before we dive in, do us a favor, hit the drop down, give us 5 stars if you are on Apple, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, and subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. The only way that this show grows is by y'all spreading it around and therefore getting the algorithm to recommend it to more people who could use this information. Thank you. Our guest on today's episode of the Restaurant Incubator is Newman Miller of Mr. Tubbs in Bardstown, Kentucky. So, Newman, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk to you today. And I think most of our listeners are not going to be super familiar with Bardstown, Kentucky. So if you could paint us a picture of just what's it like when you drive into Bardstown, and what does your guest see and feel when they walk into Mr. Tubbs, and what do you want that experience to be?
Yeah, so Bardstown, Kentucky, we're a town of about 10,000 people, almost dead center of the state of Kentucky. So we're in the bluegrass region. If you're into bourbon, you probably know it because it is the bourbon capital of the world. It's trademarked. We won most beautiful small town in America in the past 10 years. I grew up on a tobacco farm 10 minutes away. My brother and I, who were partners with my wife in Mr. Tubbs, she's a Hoosier. She grew up in Indiana, but Harrison and I grew up 10 minutes away. I got as far away as possible and then came back. Harrison went to Lexington, where University of Kentucky is, and ran a series of bars and, sort of hospitality jobs in Lexington. And then, we moved back from Chicago to open Mr. Tubbs. And the big thing, and to your question, like, what are we trying to do? We want to be the most of the place all the time. Like, whatever we're doing, we want to be of the place. And so Mr. Tubbs, while oddly enough, not just a bourbon bar, right? That's sort of like taking sand to the beach down here, right? There's plenty of bourbon bars, and we could have 400 different bottles on the shelf and stuff, but we sort of take a different approach and just sort of handpick who we're going to deal with and what bottles we're going to get. I mean, it's not that easy as just to get them. It's taking a lot of time, but we want people to feel uniquely in Bardstown. And, there's nothing to, directly compare it to. But I think that's the coolest thing about travel. For our locals, we just want to be that spot where they feel like they can, tuck in. And I lived in Scotland for a little while, so I love sort of the pub culture. And, that would definitely be the local side of it. But, yeah, we want people to feel like they're in Bardstown.
Well, having worked in Chicago and come back to Bardstown from there, how do you and so I'm sure in Chicago it's not all bourbon bars, but you're coming back to the bourbon capital of the world, or the bourbon capital of Kentucky. So I guess that's bourbon capital of the world.
Yeah.
Maybe but how do you balance having, with your scratching a creative itch of maybe having some non-bourbon cocktails on the menu, and also, getting people to say, I know you love bourbon, but you can get that anywhere here. Why don't you try this? What is that? What's that non-bourbon cocktail you offer them?
You know, we I was really lucky. Like the 8 years that we lived in Chicago was sort of its time for food and beverage. And I
Hmm.
mean, it's always been great and it always will be great. But 2007 to 14 was a really creative, I think, time for the Midwest. I mean, it happened to be, right. Chicago
Hmm.
shot up, I think they won like a Super Bowl and that helped. And then the Blackhawks were awesome. And those things where I'm not like a sports guy, they made the city sing, and then all these places were opening. And so like Paul McGee, who ends up being one of the, foremost rum sort of ambassadors now and tiki for America, every Monday night down from our apartment is doing he's reading a book and making 8 cocktails out of the book, and all $8. And so
Jeez.
we would walk to the bar, try all 8, and then, go home and
Yeah.
learn with him. And then he goes to open Three Dots in the Dash and, all these other sort of things. So anyway, a lot of our knowledge is built not on bourbon. Like I'm
Hmm.
from here, but I left when I was 17. Like,
Yeah.
the 12 days after high school, I started culinary school and moved to Louisville. And then right after that, went to Indiana. And, so for me, I needed to sort of learn more about the bourbon.
Hmm.
It was easy to come up with the rum cocktails because I had the
Yeah.
best. Our buddy Danny Shapiro in Chicago did Scofflaw and the Scofflaw Restaurant Group, and now I think he has 6 bars in Chicago. But like we were there his first 8 months at the first gin bar for sure in the Midwest and maybe in America, and so really we just brought that with us, and we had more knowledge outside of the bourbon side. And then coming here, you realize how little you know, right? You don't know what you
Okay.
don't know until you get here. And then you've got palates that are built on the terroir, literally the smell. Like we're downtown Bardstown. Barton is the closest distillery to us, which is a Sazerac brand. And in the morning, there's a smell, and that's the cook, right? And then in the afternoon, there's a smell, and it's much sweeter, and that's the dry because the silage that you use to make the whiskey, right? And so it's unreal what that does to your brain after so long because, like, when they're cooking whiskey and you can tell what part. So anyway, yeah, I mean, and as far as adventurousness, like we always joke that the further away from Bardstown you're from, the more you like us because we sort of push boundaries a little bit. But we've been real lucky that I mean, we try to only put out the best quality we can, and they've been the whole town always has been very accepting of us being different, just not being the traditional bourbon bar, not having all the traditional, it's not. I'm bourbon and ham on it, Instagram, right? So
Uh-huh.
I mean, it is who I am.
Yeah.
So but people have, yeah, been very accepting of it.
Well, the Mr. Tubbs Instagram account is fantastic. It's informative. The graphics are great. The deals are great. The font's consistent. But what really struck me was the sense of humor. Like, the cups that are like, it may be the coldest bourbon in town, and then like the one of, I think it must be you doing the shot and the Miller
That's
High
me.
Life, and this is the Knob Creek deal for the week. So that sense of humor that's in there, is there a through line that goes from like your brain to Instagram and then into the culture of the restaurant? Or how did tell us about that?
We're really lucky. We've had a number of people sort of help us with the social media.
Hmm.
My wife, my brother's wife, um, and Kento Kobayashi. So he is a good friend of ours who is the social media guru. He's also a very good chef. He's part Japanese, part Kentucky. which
Mhm.
is awesome. And we're just, he really, if you watch the last, it sort of progressed. We've been trying our best to just keep progressing on it. From my account, that's straight from my brain to the world, and it's a little bit weirder, right? The bourbon and ham is a little less organized overall than the cultural one, but for us, hospitality, even the humor.
Uh-huh.
I just it's taken me 25 years of cooking before I really sort of understood that really I am in I want to be in the hospitality industry. Now I've always sort of tried to practice that, but realistically now as the longer I go, the more it's like I express it through food, but it can be humor on something like our tagline, brought in's welcome is a big one on our mugs and on all these things.
I
And
saw
that's
that.
like and that's because in Bardstown, it used to be if you weren't within these three little throughways, you weren't a Bardstonian, right? You were a brought in. And I would have been a brought in.
Okay.
And in the midst of where we are in the world today, the idea of Broaden's welcome is the most hospitable thing that I personally like. It had nothing to do with any of that, except that
Yeah.
it was a joke that wasn't funny that, that needed that needed a sense of humor put to it, right? And
Yeah.
so, for our first restaurant, the Harrison Smith House, we were the Harrison Smith House Fine Kentucky Fair
Uh-huh.
because we didn't want anybody to think that we took ourselves too seriously, but we absolutely took ourselves madly seriously behind the scenes, but we didn't want anybody to feel that, right? We just wanted to
Yeah.
make great food and let them feel like they were somewhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. As my manager put it at lineup yesterday, we are doing we are doing snooty food in an unsnooty fashion. That's the way he put it, because
That's it.
we
Yes, I
gotta
love it.
gotta make people feel welcome. And I told my servers on like day one of Hawthorne and Wood, like, y'all gotta be flow at the diner friendly, because we are trying to do upscale food here and people are gonna come in with a chip on their shoulder. So
100%.
yeah.
And it's like that's our job is to melt it though, right? It's like how do we melt that? How do you disarm it? I'll never forget the worst review we ever got at the other restaurant was because we had bluegrass music playing
Uh-huh.
instead of classical music. And that is literally, and you know what? We were so proud of it. I was like, and they didn't even notice though. It was metal. It was bluegrass covers of metal. Like it was like
Yeah.
Megadeth bluegrass. It was awesome, but
Uh-huh.
they, were so disappointed. But yeah, we just want to melt that chip, right?
Yeah, that's a review that could end up on a staff t-shirt right there. That's good.
Yep, yep.
Oh. Well, when it came to coming back to Bardstown from Chicago, what was the process like of forming the company and finding a lease and agreeing with the landlord, and also of finding the niche of what was neat, what food and beverage establishment was needed in a town of only 10,000.
Yeah, that's great question, and it was kind of complicated. I was a corporate chef for 6 of the 8 years I was in Chicago, so
Mhm.
I would make chain restaurants suck less. That
Right.
was my job, right? I would go to Dubai and work with Applebee's on their all beef menu, or we go to
Uh-huh.
Spain and teach them how to make quesadillas for Taco Bell the right way.
Yeah.
And so that was what I had been doing for about 6 years was processes, right? Eliminating SKUs, just looking at back of the house, less creativity. Well, I guess just a different scope of it.
Hmm.
We had our first child in Chicago. I fell out of a tree and just shattered my foot and ankle. It was, yeah. I was trying to teach a baby how to climb a tree, and I
Oh,
didn't teach him how to get down right.
yeah.
But anyway, all that sort of happened at once, and we were like, you know what, the city, this is our tap out for the city. I started looking. I grew up in a historic home built in 1842. Um, a Greek revival, like on the tobacco farm. And so we were looking into what would it take to get a liquor license? Because in Kentucky, it's still it's dry. It's a moist state, right? We have
Okay.
wet and dry, and even within a county, you can have a wet city and a dry county, and they call it moist. So we were just looking into all the legalities and had a family member tell us about a property in Bardstown, and it was a even older home, excuse me, built in 1780, and it was a restaurant on the bottom and a residence up top. And that was like, that's my kind of crazy, 100%. And my wife as well. Like that's what, and so we came to look at it on crutches. I was on crutches. It had a basement, a first, a second, and a third attic.
Okay.
I'm on crutches trying to see the house. I don't
Oh
even
my
think I
gosh.
saw two of the floors.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in. I mean, and so we became first time business owners, first time homeowners, first time landlords, for yeah, I mean, whatever other things that could ever happen. Neither of us done anything but rent apartments our entire life.
Mhm.
And now we bought a restaurant with a house attached. Um, Luckily, we had some really smart people in Chicago that were like on the lawyer side of things
Uh-huh.
who helped us. And then whenever we got to Bardstown, we met who became our lawyer, Chad McCoy. And luckily, they were all just really brutally honest with us. It's
Nice.
like the three D's, right? Death, divorce, and dissolvement, right? Like the
Dissolution. Yeah. Yeah.
three, those are the three D's that we get, and just they burnt them into our head. And so,
Yeah.
we just did our best to listen and make as few mistakes as possible. And we definitely made mistakes, but then, yeah, we owned the house for 9 years. We sold it and did better than I did being a cook. So that was good. And a friend got it, and it's still a hospitality space,
Cool.
and it allowed us to sort of have the seed money to start Mr. Tubbs, which is what we saw as the next thing that the town sort of wanted or needed. I don't know. I mean, what
Uh-huh.
what does anybody ever need or want? But and then as far as the concept goes, like I think there was a preconceived notion of what I'm supposed to cook. If I'm
Uh-huh.
being real honest, like John T. Edge and I were talking one time, and I gave him beans, soup beans, and hoe cakes. And he said something about how the hoe cakes were really thin and sort of lacy. He goes, "It's like a tortilla." And I was like, "I got to be honest. Eh, I'm trying to make tortilla. That's basically what I'm going for. Like I've
Yeah.
had more tortillas in my life than I have cornbread. And even if I'm from Kentucky, like
Mhm.
my chosen life has been Mexican food, Southeast Asian, Japan, like, but people want me to cook Southern food.
Mhm.
And I know how to cook Southern food. And so that's sort of the concept set itself. We're in a 1780 home. We're in the second oldest town in Kentucky. I have a history of cooking that food. Farm to table is what I sort of trained. I guess if there was a thing that I did, I worked at North Pond Restaurant in Chicago, which was like the ultimate farm to table with Bruce Sherman at the time, and we just leaned into it. And then when I wanted to put an influence of wherever else in the world, it's like it turns out sumac grows all over Kentucky, like
Mm.
the type you can eat. So unapologetically, we're gonna have sumac chicken, and somebody's gonna say, "Well,
We're not in Tunisia.
what is
Yeah.
it like?" So does thyme and Benny seeds, and you
Right.
almost got za'atar, right? And it's like, so what can't I do
Yeah.
from this sort of base? And so that was just how we decided it. It was not throw a dart, but it was
Yeah.
sort of do what's expected in a certain sense. What goes well with the drinks, because the drinks have to drive. Especially, I mean, we had 42 seats. Um, that was the driving factor, right? Everybody was going to eat, but who was going to drink?
Mhm.
And that was the thing.
So at Mr. Tubbs, I mean, with that, global repertoire that you have, are you taking, how do you, because I'm putting myself in your shoes, and if I knew how to do all that stuff, I would want to do the greatest. I would want to have Korean fried chicken and bao and XLBs and quesadillas and my favorite Tex-Mex stuff. I would want to have all that stuff, but then I would have a pantry that had a million effing ingredients. So, one, how do you pare down the things that you want to do? And are you doing greatest hits of bar food from around the world? Are you doing stuff that you haven't been able to cook anywhere? And then how do you manage those costs in that inventory?
Yeah, so right now we're lucky that we have two outlets. So we've got the bar, and then we've got Scout and Scholar, the brewery, which is 100 yards away. And
Okay.
so the Scout and Scholar sort of is where we get to do the systems, the operations, the R&D that we sort of mentioned about. That's where the SKUs really matter to us. I mean, that's where there's 50 plus employees
Mhm.
and quite a bit more volume, and so that's where our discipline mostly lies, I guess, is the better way to put it. So that's where I'm
Mhm.
like going through, and anytime there's a new special, I go, all right, what are we bringing in? You know what I mean? Like I do
Mhm.
the old that was exactly what I had to do for all those chains, right? It's like you
Yeah.
get one, maybe two ingredients outside of our build list, and that's it.
Yeah.
Figure it out, And
Yeah.
so we do that there. At the bar, it's an absolute free for all. And not like in an unorganized way, but like for
Yeah.
me, I just sort of wake up wanting to cook something and we cook it.
Mhm.
And there's not a rhyme or a reason always to that. Now
Mhm.
we always have, I think, best in class meatball sub every day, all day that we're open, right? So like there's one item that you can count on, and then we do some snack trays. We use a local smoked trout, homemade pimento beer cheese, just three little snacks like that. That's always there. But then I get to play otherwise. Like last night, we did supper we did breakfast for supper, and I grew up. My dad, I don't know if he meant to do it or not, but he spelled biscuits bizcats. So we had bizcats and gravy and roasted potatoes, and because we've got a locally famous gas station sausage
Uh-huh.
here called Jake's 150, and then we did a butter toasted bizcat with pimento cheese, country ham, and sorghum blackberry syrup. That's just, I woke up yesterday morning and I was like, that's what people want on a Sunday night,
Nice. Yeah.
and you make 35 of them or something of each one, and we just try to bring a little bit more attention to the bar. Really is what the food at the bar is about, right? Again, like I don't wish it was different. It's just the reality that, especially with food costs the way they're going right now, you've got to make it some other way. I mean,
Mhm.
and the margin on the alcohol is better. And we don't like to overcharge. We just don't do it. And so I'd rather give you an incentive to be there. And really, it's the food, and that's what we're going for, is make something fun, something you don't want to make at home, you don't know exist. Like you
Yeah.
listed five of my favorite. I want XLB, I want bao, I want quesadilla with kimchi on it, I want, uh, all those. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to, but also we do it in a respectful way, right? Like
Uh-huh.
I don't make things that I haven't had a gold standard. I don't serve guests things that I haven't gone to Devon at. Like if I'm going to make a biryani, I'm gonna, reference the ones that I ate in London, and I'm
Mhm.
going to know that I went to Devon Avenue when I lived in Chicago and extensively went through, you know, that category of dish. And I'm gonna go to the Patel store in, Louisville and source those ingredients. And so it's not, a mail it in, capitalize on the best of necessarily,
Uh-huh.
but those are the dishes that I know people can learn. And but for me, the big thing is the gold standard. Like if you've not had that gold standard, it that's yeah, like that's the difference maker, even more than like the talent to make the dish. You
Mhm.
just got to know what you're supposed to be making, I think, because I'd rather have one that's a little clunky, but the flavor profile is like what you'd find there,
Yeah.
than something super overly Americanized. That's not what I'm after, even though
Right.
that's proud American, but it's like not. I want to cook
Yeah.
a quesadilla like a lady in Mexico. Like that's, you know, the highest praise I can figure out.
Yeah, I think that compromise of Americanize something too much can water it down to a point where it's not recognizable to either camp, and then it just falls flat.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, overseeing, so Mr. Tubbs has 8+ employees. I think you said Scout and Scholar, 50+ employees. How do you? It reminds me of this quotation by President Eisenhower. He said, I can't get the important things done because I'm dealing with the urgent things. So like the stuff that's always coming up, like the little fires and stuff are always interrupting. Like me personally, from working on the business, I find myself working in the business. Is there a way that you have found that you can structure your time effectively, so that your people get what they need from you, but so does the business as well?
Uh, every day, everyday struggle without a
Yeah,
doubt.
I hear
I
you.
got to say that in all honesty, my brother, who's our general operations director for both spaces, it's people you trust. I mean, I think it's the like nobody can do it all sort of thing, and who would want to if they could is the reality of it. But I think that's Rachel, our third partner. I mean, like just having they really deal with the employees the most. They
Yeah,
are, you know, I I don't know. I don't know if there is a trick, but that's really a big part of it. And I completely like I just recently we got a new brewer. And so, when you said it, like working on the business instead or in the business instead of on the business, there are all these things, when we came in as partners for this brewery that we wanted to affect change on. And it took a year to
yeah,
figure out what they even were, which is wild, right? When they say it out loud, you go, how
yeah,
could anything take you a year? Well, it's a lot of pieces, right? It's a restaurant, it's a brewery, it has a still, so we can be a distillery as well. It's just and so I just had to like exit the food side for a moment and find a brewer. And we did.
Mhm.
And we think, knock on wood, that he's doing an exceptional job. And that was one of those deep breaths because he got something big done out of the way that's going to affect us for, I don't know. I mean, as many years as we're both willing to trade each other, time for money and relationship, and
yeah,
so I don't know. I guess the big thing is you just got to fall on those big tasks, like fall on your sword about it. Is maybe the other way is like trust people, but the worst job's the one you got to get done first,
yeah,
and just get it off the list because it just keeps getting worse. Like and so whatever
yeah,
that big, big, big proposition is, I don't know. It sucks. There's there it is. Like anybody's
yeah,
just like it's fine. Once you get that done, everything's no. It's but this is the big one, and that's the one that's gonna haunt you. And so you just got to figure out, what those big tasks are. I think and try to knock them out.
yeah, yeah. Well, this podcast is really geared towards, first-time restaurant operators, future restaurant operators, and a lot of them, especially almost all the ones who don't come from either a corporate or a hotel background, have little to no experience looking at financials and knowing how to interpret them. But with, all the changes in technology, I mean, my chefs and sous chefs and managers can all see literally up to the minute. Labor reports. They can see up to the minute sales reports. And we're in a somewhat seasonal market. It's not a resort area, but we are very slow in January. And so, coaching them to, okay, this is going to be, this month is not headed in the right direction financially. What levers are we going to pull? How do you and your executive team look at that, coach through that? And when you're 2 weeks into a month that isn't going to expectations so far, what are some adjustments that you make along the way so that it's not a financial bloodbath by the 30th day of the month?
Absolutely. Again, the two businesses sort of differ because big ship, little ship, little one turns pretty quickly, and you
Hmm.
can be as decisive as you want. This last week, I ran 3 pop-ups at the bar.
Yeah.
The week before, 2 weeks before was our busiest week of the year. Then it was a slow week.
Uh-huh.
No idea. Right? The whole town had a slow week. So we did 3 more things than we ever would the next week. And so the little one, that's sort of, we're very quick to react with it
Yeah.
because there's less bodies needed to get it done. It's really, can I give an extra 20 to 30 hours to, do these pop-ups? And sometimes we won't even bring in another staff member. We just hum, and everybody gets to make a little extra because of that, right? That's the blessing and curse of sort of tip wage. But it usually works really well for our employees when we do that. For both places, we look at year over year, before every month. When we're doing the scheduling for the next month, we're looking at year over year sales. We're sort of bringing up any big dates, any, like, Halloween is notoriously terrible, right? At least for our town. I mean, I think anywhere that there's kids, because the parents can't go anywhere. It's the busiest night of the year for delivery pizza, though. I do know is Halloween.
Okay.
But, like, we'll look at that and we'll know that, all right, what are we doing this year? Are we even going to try to incentivize Halloween,
Right.
since we know why they're not coming out? Or do we just staff it by 2 people? Everybody with kids is off.
Well, and it's a drag this year because there are 5 Fridays in October, but one of them is Halloween, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at my calendar behind me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to lose a Friday. You know what I mean? And you're going to lose a Saturday. And then we'll have 5 good years of, sort of Halloween.
Yeah.
But, that's, during the week, the one thing that we've been lucky enough right now, and I don't know that it's the most, if I tell everybody to do it, but you can't go back on money, right? And, like, our employees might love us, they might hate us. There's hopefully some middle ground in between the two, but, like, midweek, mid shift, midday, mid month, even changing up schedules is hard, and taking hours is hard. And we've always, like, if you come in for that meeting on your day off, you get your 2 hours, right? A lot of people don't know that exists. Like, you can't have somebody come in and do a meeting and not. So, like, it's not that we don't pivot, but it's more, again, let's drive sales opposed to cut staff. Like, that's sort of our way to go. I mean, we're going to cut somebody early. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're saints about it and there's nobody never going home, but lots of hands raised too, and so in the middle of who doesn't want to have to close, on deep. And so we just try to do a mix of those things because we don't want it to be our employees' fault. That people aren't coming out, that we scheduled incorrectly, that it's a tough time of year, like, it's, we want to do our best to keep it on our shoulders, I guess, when possible, because I know how much food I can cook and serve alone, and it's not that much. Unfortunately, like, it's not that much, in the big scheme of things. And so keeping that crew of 40, plus happy, that's non-management, we'll do whatever because they're more important. I mean, really, than the customer, because you don't get any of them without them there, right? Like,
right.
So I don't know. I don't know if that answered or danced around your question, but there's no one way we attack it.
Well, it does, and it brings up I appreciate you putting such a fine point on it. I mean, you literally said we are trying to drive costs rather than, cut hours. And so that brings up a couple things for me. One of them is one of my favorite questions to ask in a manager interview is, I'll ask, is it more important to drive revenue or control costs? And that's always a stumper because the candidate thinks there's a right answer, and there's not a right answer. But I find that the people who come from operations side usually say cut costs or control costs, and the ones who come from a sales side say drive revenue. But that's
a great point. I never thought about that even. Like, it's the two different mindsets of it, but that makes total sense. You know what I mean? But I'm a drive sales guy. I just think that sales cures all evil. That was maybe from traveling with salespeople when I was a corporate chef and sort of seeing that, in good times things are good, and then it's just sort of like that metric. Also, though, you can't go too far on either side because if you just go out of control with sales, your systems end up
can't support it.
Exactly. You forget about it gets a little lax. And so it's got to go back and forth between.
Well, someone told me, I wish I could remember who it was so I could give them credit, told me a little while ago, you can cut your way to solvency, but you can't cut your way to like prosperity and profit. You need revenue for that. But I also want to tease out one other thing. I think that you said that you would go and put in another 20 or 30 hours a week to drive these pop-ups. So tell me like the process for that, because that is, I mean, you like you said, that is turning a small boat. That is turning something really, really quickly. What are the pop-ups? What do they look like? How do you get word out? How do you come up with them?
Um, Last Monday, I sat down I took, my first child to school, drop him off at 7:15. I come into the bar, sit down at this computer, look at the numbers for, Wednesday through Sunday. 10 minutes later, I had 3 pop-ups that I was going to do this week. It was, I try to be thoughtful about this one from a SKU standpoint. We already had an event on Thursday with our local library to get adults to sign up for library cards, and then there's a romance novel shop in town.
I
So like,
love the romance novel book fair. That was
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
dude, they had 170 people show up for library
Nice.
cards and books, and
Amazing.
so that was already happening. And down here for school lunch, so to make it a little more school lunchy, chili is, I mean, I know it's everywhere, but it was a big deal at St. Dominic where I went because they
Uh-huh.
give you a peanut butter sandwich to dip in it. Like, and it comes with noodles. So,
Yeah.
like, it's a whole, is it spaghetti sort of situation. So I made that. Well, I made enough chili so that the next day, I love New Mexico. I love Tex-Mex. I understand the big difference between those two, but there's somewhere in between there. I lie
Uh-huh.
in cooking my norteño, sort of food. And so I knew that the chili was only going to get better. And so I immediately was like, we're doing chili cheese quesadillas, just smothered. I've got a Mexican grocery store in Louisville that I get that has a fresh flour tortilla manufacturer. Took that, did Friday night's pop up. I think we had 50. I think I had 50 orders, and we sold those out.
Nice.
And I just went in and I cooked all day, and the bartenders took the order, and then our bar back would run the order out, and then we would all clear tables, and it was in a disposable. Um, but it's more than that 50, at 20 a plate that helped, but they all drank, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody had a drink.
Yep.
And Saturday we hosted a class reunion of like 38-year-olds, which was great. And then Sunday I made breakfast for dinner because I didn't release anything. I just said I was going to make breakfast for dinner, and it could have been chilaquiles.
Right.
If I still had some prep from that, it was not that, but so that's just the flexibility. That was on Monday. I
Hmm.
just wrote it out and said this is what I'm going to get done this week in addition to the stuff that we're going to also get done. Um we had our busiest Saturday of the year at the brewery and our busiest Saturday of the year here at the bar, both on Saturday. I would have never known that. It might not have been the great week to have 3 extra pop-ups from my side, but you know what? It was even better week, and so
Yeah.
like we just got to make hay. We've got September, October, no, that are the strongest
Yeah.
for our little part of the world. Like these 2 months, really, April, May, September, October. Those 4 months are easily 6 to 8 months out of the revenue,
Okay.
and it comes down to the horse racing and bourbon. And so, just whatever we can do during this time. Um, and this week after our call, I'm gonna think about this week's. And I just got asked to cook a YPO dinner at Maker's Mark. So we used to run the food service for them. And right before we got on, I got asked to do a dinner for 40 next Saturday down at Maker's Mark, a high end one. So that might be next week's pop up. It just happens to not be at the bar, you
Yeah.
know. So
Nice.
yeah, we're pretty flexible. I mean, I really love away games.
Uh-huh.
We do a little bit of everything.
So are y'all, when it comes to away games, are y'all set up to do offsite catering with vans and equipment and all that stuff, or is it patched together?
Patch patched together, but not in a patchwork sort of. I'm trying to think of the right way. So rentals, we'll do all offsite rentals. And then that way we have, professional level equipment that we don't have to keep in storage. And honestly, the people that we're usually catering for, the price isn't the end all for them, and so they can usually afford the
Yeah.
rental of all the sort of equipment that we need to do.
Right. Right.
I have a couple walk-in coolers that we can use between the two restaurants, and a lot of times up to 100 people, me and the sous chef will prep almost everything, and
Hmm.
then go on site. And I'm lucky to have a group of sort of 4 to 5 mercenary chefs in Louisville, and we all just sort of trade helping each other out for these big events. Yeah, I get high schoolers. I mean, we just did a big charity dinner for 150 for the Ghost Center here in Bardstown, which is our charity of choice, one of the two down here. And I mean, all the help was high school,
Hmm.
and it was 150 a plate for 150 people. That we
Nice.
got to raise, and you just learn how to talk high school for a little bit. But
Right.
yeah, we've done a lot of catering down here. It's so much work, as you know. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's fulfilling. It's cool to go to a rick house and do a catering. I've cooked at almost every distillery in Kentucky, now, and
Hmm.
that's special.
Yeah.
The Keeneland racetrack. Can't say no to that stuff.
Right. No, that's awesome. Well, let's see. Oh yeah. So when it comes to onboarding a new employee, maybe it's a sous chef, training a new cook, maybe it's a lead bartender training a new bartender. What is your hope and what is your expectation for that leader from your company to impart, about the culture of your workplaces to the new employee?
Um, I honestly don't keep that high of an expectation that they should have to. I
Hmm.
really I want it bad. I but it's in the time we're in right this second. It seems like it's almost on the unfair side of things to expect an employee to go to bat for an employer. And I don't know if that's the right way to say it, and it's not looking negatively. It's just I hope that everybody there is like, look, this is our culture, and we all work
Hmm.
hard together, and there's highs, lows, whatever. But more and more, I think it's really on the ownership team and whoever is the management to sort of verbally do that. It just it comes across different when it's the people who really have their ownership of it and really care. And then if
Hmm.
you're good enough of an owner, right, to let your managers be own their positions, then they can sort of speak to that. But just it's hard. I
Yeah.
don't. It's just. I hope that always, there's a good communication about expectations, because that's what staging to me is for.
Hmm.
It's not for 3 months and just free labor, right? It's
Yeah.
let's just spend a day together.
It's a
Let's
working
just see if
interview.
this is
Yeah.
a spot that you enjoy being in. Let's all just be real today.
Hmm.
And then, your expectation of the job is true to an extent, right? I mean, everybody's on their best behavior because
Yeah.
if it's a sous chef, we need a sous chef, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let's get him
Yeah.
in. But don't lie, just do that 1 day stage, pay him for a stage. And
Uh-huh.
so it's not really a stage, pay for that time, and hope that and I know it's not that easy, but like that's genuinely I haven't found that perfect way.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is one. I mean, I know that I staged for Jean Georges von Richt in 2004.
Mhm.
Would I like to have that culture? Yeah, man, that's something
It was
else.
tight.
But I'm
Yeah.
not Jean Georges. I mean,
Right.
I would love part of it, but he's Jean Georges for a reason. Like the way
Yeah.
that I mean, just the recipe book that I got for my stage. Just there's those outliers, but I feel like they are sort of outliers that just I don't. What's the nice word for cult? Is you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what is the correct
Exactly.
word?
I know.
Because it exists, and I mean, I've bought in. I've drank the Kool Aid for places without a doubt. And I mean, I love how Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons does that with their management level people. How Michael Mina, Jean Georges, Thomas Keller, like every one of their people had a big swig of Kool-Aid every day, and it comes across in the best possible way, though. When you're in those places and you feel it. But I can't say that I figured that out. I can't pretend that there's just something magic. Houston's right restaurant.
Great example, yeah.
We all want to get that operations manual, right? But then, like, what do you do with it? Like, that's the crazy part. Is like everybody's like, "Let me get that." All right, here's the total playbook. It's like giving a dude who watches football on Sunday a real playbook and be like, "Cool, call him."
Yeah, right.
Like, what are you gonna do? You can't even read this, know. And that's how. So, like, that's just another level. And so I still am learning and looking up to, and always trying to get better at that. 100%. I wish that I had answers in that realm. It's constant questioning it, and like even deciding like what is your culture. Like I started cooking in 2000 and or 2000, and that is a different market of cooks and clientele than it is today, in a way that we both can just go, wow, I mean, it was still sort of pirate shippy for another 10 or 15 years. You know what I mean? It seems
100%.
like. And I don't know.
I know. I'm still trying to figure it out too. And it's a different culture, different language. And sometimes I think I'm overstating it. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's changed.
Yeah. So. I mean, and it's like, and I look back on it fondly, but also I understand why other people don't want to do what we, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I get it, but it's hard though, because the things that at 2000 you took pride in 2025, you sort of look like a sucker for. And that's the hardest part to me, is like the giving of time, trading time for knowledge was the way I always sort of told myself, at least. I don't feel like I was ever taken advantage of by, from a work standpoint, from anybody. It was trading, you know what I mean? Like time for knowledge. And, I think I listened to a podcast recently, and it was Joe Flam, the guy who won Top Chef, and he has Rosemary in Chicago. And he said that he was telling his cooks, he's like, look, if you can make 40 hours work financially a week, that's cool. But like, when are you getting your reps in? Like 40 hours of reps is half the reps you need.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something if you're one of those 10,000 hour guys or whatever, like, 100-hour week, it's like, there's special forces, and then there's, non, and I don't know. But yeah, you look like a sucker now if you give your time away for free, or if, you're trading on it. And I wish that wasn't the case, because I think there's value in, just straight learning, like no matter what level, we got to keep learning stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't feel like I was taken advantage of, whether I was being, paid a low wage or whether I was working for free, because I was either being paid to learn or I was volunteering. And for both of them, I was learning. And I think that this was one of the things that made me most upset, that the media latched onto during COVID, and became such a hook for them of saying about how, especially back of house, workers are underpaid, and at least at the level that you and I cooked at, 20 years ago, it's an artisanal trade. It's not a job at a drive-through. And so that has always really rubbed me the wrong way, that because I look at it this way. It's like, you're not paying to go to culinary school. You're getting to go work at this 3-star Michelin restaurant for free. They're not charging you to learn how to cook. Like, what do you, anyway, I could go on and on.
No, great trade. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, and, I think you can tell in the way restaurants work. Yeah, I mean, you can walk in one and just see, like, where did somebody work and not. And, great ones, you're taking away more than they borrowed from you. I mean, that's just what it is. You can go eat
That is absolutely true. That is
you're
absolutely
taking
true.
away more. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's well put. I've never heard it put quite like that before. It gives me goosebumps because that's very true of me and some places that I work. But I appreciate you putting a fine point on it like that. That's well said. Well, last question, Scout and Scholar, Mr. Tubbs. Any plans for what's next? Any expansion coming?
There's always something in the pipeline.
Okay.
Right now, big focus is the brewery and
Okay.
working. So we hired a new brewer, and then I immediately took him on a trip to Munich and Prague because, as I was stating earlier, I think the gold standard is the only practice, right? You got to know what you're shooting for. So we did 2 days in Munich, a day in Bamberg, Germany, and then 2 days in Prague. I need to learn more about beer. I mean, I've certainly don't need to taste more. I've tasted a lot of it, but
know what it tastes like, yeah.
But just really own it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thing that I personally am working on heavily. Obviously from a business standpoint, but also just personally, I want to get to know it better. I think that the opportunities being in a place like, if I want to nerd out quickly about it, being in a place with sort of the flora and fauna and the wild yeast that exists because of all the distilling and things like that.
Yeah.
All the agriculture, being in a place where you can get fresh drained barrels from any distillery in Kentucky within an hour of, them draining it. Like, our new brewer's dad is a master distiller. He was the master distiller for Maker's Mark for a number of years. He was master distiller at Barton. So, like, the beer side of things, like our chef right now is incredible over at Scout and Scholar. And he's raised in Orlando, family from Maine. So hot dogs are a big style dogs. But the restaurant, he's got it humming right now. So the beer is really like picking that up and making sure that I'm knowledgeable about it so that before we pass it off to anybody else, to try to sell it, we know what we can do about it. Other than that, there's a couple things Bardstown could use. I mean, I've always wanted a barbecue restaurant. I've cooked it. I've done a barbecue tour in 7 or 9 barbecue states, and it's got a bunch of like qualifications, and it's not like a paid tour. It's like me going and spending a week, painful, like eating, I love Cajun. That's like I'm repping my rice and gravy today.
Yeah,
this is a Hilltop Cafe in Texas, but so something that had barbecue and Cajun would probably be my thought, because the best barbecue in the world has got to sell out. It's got to sell out, right? I mean, it's just, and that can't always happen unless you're Franklin. And the reality is, day old barbecue is outstanding for everything other than barbecue. Like, I think it's the best thing to go in a quesadilla, on a pizza, in a gumbo, as an etouffee, as a dirty rice. Like, and so the idea, since we're talking business, is like, how do you take the waste from one product to keep it world class, but make something that's going to make a better gumbo than if I didn't have smoked meat to use that secondary thing. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I love those flavors, and it's what I've been making for my kids a lot lately. So I don't know. I don't know if it's telling us or not.
Well, it sounds delicious. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Chef. It was great to catch up.
Hey, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Cool. Brought ins welcome. So that was my conversation with Newman Miller of Scout and Scholar, and Mr. Tubbs in Bardstown, Kentucky, with a brilliant line of hospitality and inclusion that I'm probably going to use as a title for this episode. I liked it so much. So again, if you're on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, give us 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, so hit the subscribe button. We don't do paid ads. We don't do sponsorships. And the only way that this podcast grows and gets to the people that need this information is with your shares and your 5-star ratings. Thanks, y'all. Stay humble, stay hungry.